How do you create a world of your own? We're going to talk about it on this episode of Bards and Barrels. All right, fellas. So today we're going to be talking about lore.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
That's a big topic. Where does somebody start trying to develop their own world, developing their own campaign? That's a very wide open field. We've done it. So let's talk about how we've done it and what somebody maybe can possibly do to take some of our lessons that we've learned along the way to try and develop their own world of their own.
First of all, right, we are not experts, right? We've done this before, yes. However, we're creative. Is that the appropriate way to say that, maybe?
And everybody has their own
process.
Everybody has their own style.
Yes, we're talking about our creative process, but
There you
that might not be the same as your creative process, and that's okay.
So when we have done some lore building, so we've done it a couple different times. The most recent one that we've done was for our friends over at First Street Brewing in Hastings, Nebraska. We did a intro to their year-ish long campaign. Kickstarting off that campaign, we did a special session just for the DMs to set them up for their individual campaigns. It was kind of a fun one that they are going to be coming back together as a whole 5 or 6 table group at the end of it and having one colossal grand finale. But they needed to be able to start somewhere.
Yeah, and originally it was Brett and I that were going to be the sole operators, the runners, the dungeon masters for this. And so it all really kicked off. We met with Tony. Tony's the man for First Street who runs that, and a couple of the DMs and the Nathan who owns the brewery downtown. And just over some beers, really, what we got from them was a prompt. And the prompt in this case wasn't a whole lot.
No.
It was a pirate theme. So okay, let me back up because I need to say one other detail about this. The one shot that kicked all this off was the DMs playing, so that's important to know. So again, backing up now, it was pirate themed, and the DMs all needed to die at the end of this. So those were the two
die at the end of the one shot, and then they would take it from there into their own tables, work their own stories, and finally end up somehow all back together at the end. And we were also going to be involved at the end game as well. So we had to factor in early stuff, and then they were going to handle all of the mid-game stuff, and then we were going to come back in and help wrap things up at the end.
So we're not really sure how the ending will work yet. We'll report
tuned.
back on that. I think one of the fun things that came from our meeting downtown when we were just having beers and they gave us this prompt and we were just chatting was like we didn't really have a name for the BBEG, the big bad evil guy, not guy in this case. But one of the brews that Nathan makes down at First Street is called the Golden Goddess, and he was telling us that since this was pirate themed, he was going to rum barrel age some of the Golden Goddess for the length of this campaign. So it was a beer that they could have while they were doing this, and we were like, Brett and I were both like, we looked at each other and we were like, what if the name of the evil thing is the Golden Goddess? And they love that idea. And that's kind of where we ran. Then it took off from there.
Yeah. And so we got into talking about the Golden Goddess and what we could use to develop that as a character, as a NPC that we were going to have as possibly involved in the end game. But then we also needed something that maybe the players could be working towards or working after. And so it actually developed into the Crown of the Golden Goddess, which is the name of the actual campaign that they're actually playing.
So fast forward a little bit. At some point, we actually had to come up with the details for this one shot. And I think this is where like our process as the three of us being creators, and Phil came in at this point, and we really just needed to like hash out what this one shot was going to be. And the fun thing was, it was a pretty clean slate. Like this wasn't set in a specific world. Like we could basically come up with whatever we wanted. And that's really the purpose of this video, is talking about like our creative process for coming up with the various things here. And I think, guys, the first thing that I think we all really enjoy is like we feed off each other so well when it comes to this kind of stuff. And just having a whiteboard to start to like just throw ideas out to.
And it derailed quickly.
Oh yeah.
Time and again.
And so to complicate the process, right? I'm playing in the campaign, so there were parts of like this process where Brett and Ross would kick me out of the room because they could discuss things that I wasn't allowed to know
And still doesn't know.
and still don't know. So I got to participate a little bit, but
Yeah.
there's pieces of this that I don't even know. But whiteboard was huge. I mean, as we just started throwing ideas out there, we got them up on the board, and most people know the "It's Always Sunny" meme with Charlie and all the.
Where he's like
Yeah,
pointing
he's got,
this
like,
to
the
this
strings.
That's
this
kind of
to
what
this
it
to
felt
this.
like.
Yeah.
I feel like at times in here with the
Oh,
brainstorming.
100%.
But I think what we took the crown, right, and kind of like that's how it all snowballed, right? Is
Yes.
what are we going to do with this crown? What is the lore around this item?
And we started using a lot of references that we had come up with, or we're starting to think of, like as we were developing this idea of like, oh, there's this pop culture reference, like obviously Pirates of the Caribbean. That was like probably our first one that popped
Yeah.
into our head.
Yeah.
But then there are so many just nautical themed movies or TV shows that we were able to reference and start being like just writing those down on a list.
Yeah, it was definitely Pirates of the Caribbean because we basically set this in a Tortuga-esque
Yeah.
place. We needed to like put this someplace. At some point during like one of our podcasts that we've done, like we talked about go out there and read books, watch movies, do things like that. One of the things we do on our opening crack episodes now is we draw from topics and we talk about things that we're reading, movies that we like, things like that. And the reason for this is for exactly that point. Like when you're creating a world, like you pull from literally everything that you've read, like, and you may not even realize it until you get down the road and you're like, oh my God, you know what? That was totally from X movie or book or something like that. And it's just this beautiful mishmash in a lot of ways that comes together and created this fantastic story. So short and sweet on that little piece there. Read, watch movies, do all the things you normally do because all of that comes into play when you're world building.
And especially as we started getting into like kind of the storyline that we're going to be using, we started really referencing those different movies of like, hey, and this kind of sounds like another one was Moana. Like this kind of sounds like Moana, or like completely different than Pirates of the Caribbean, but it still kind of worked. And so you can see we were able to step into the shoes of maybe some of the Disney or Pixar developers as they were developing that storyline of like, oh yeah, they needed to be able to get to the island in Moana and be able to face this big baddie, and some of the steps that they used to get the characters in that movie to their end game.
Yeah. I am trying to think of. We started a list. We should figure out where that list is at and post it. But
How many
Yeah.
references
It was
we're
a lot,
making.
and it was very random.
it
too.
was, yeah.
Like some of them were not nautical themed at all, but we're able to be connected enough that we're like, oh, what if we did this, or what if we did this, and started piecing together all those individual pieces, and just throwing everything back up onto that whiteboard Ross was talking about, just to have everything up there, and we were able to refine it down later.
I think there was so much of that lore building was we started with the crown, but also we started to build out characters that lived in that time, in future time, in present time, right? Like there's kind of all these different components, and then does the crown have powers? What are those powers? Like where can we draw from references of powers over the sea, and who has control of those powers? And that I think is where that creative process really started to touch all over the place as far as references go.
We also started to get into a lot of looking at the different possibilities of where are we going, what are we going to have holes in, and starting to identify, hey, if to be able to get from here to here, we're going to have a hole of information that we need to be able to transfer. And so that's where we were really able to start to developing our various NPCs. Is like, hey, we needed some options to be able to lore dump in different locations. And so we need to have some relevant characters to be able to do so. And then not just like some random dude on a street.
Yeah, for sure.
Thus was born the Tideborns.
Yes.
Thus was born the Tideborn.
And the Tideborn family, as part of that whole legacy of going from the crown of the Golden Goddess, they were like the pirate kings.
Yeah.
But in the process of it, we realized that we were going to have a long time frame that we were going to have to cover. Like this needed to be over generations that we needed to expand of lore information to be able to dump to the players. But we didn't want to just have like, hey, this happened like long, long ago, and then now your characters already know that information. We wanted to have some additional details on backing up that history. And so at one point we got kind of like, oh no, how are we going to develop this amount of extra detail that we weren't really expecting to have to do?
Yeah. And that's where, in this case, that specific case, AI came in to help us. We were using ChatGPT. And I know that's a really divisive thing out there using that. And I think my tip for everyone would be like, don't let it create for you. Tell it what you want and let it give you stuff back. So in this case, like we had developed essentially like the story surrounding the Tideboard family, and we were like, hey, give us, here's a little bit about this family, here's why this crown's getting passed down, give us a 500-year lineage of this family, and it happily cranked that out, names and spouses and how that passed down, and it was
name generation alone was really key for us to be able to develop like, hey, this is something that actually fits our theme, fits the lineage of the Tideborns. It's kind of like a Game of Thrones-esque title situation where they have like multiple titles of like the Lord of this and then blah 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 blah. Kind of like Khaleesi.
All the way down, I feel like, to the NPC that Brett played at the one shot that we went back and forth actually quite a few times with ChatGPT trying to find like the right name to characterize this character. And I honestly don't remember if we ended up going with our own at the end of the day, but it took forever to get to Lowell.
Lowell, that's right. That's who it was.
Lowell,
yes,
Lowell
Tideborn. He was the current Tideborn, yeah. I think one thing that we should point out here is DMs have this, and it depends a lot on who you talk to, but a lot of people tell you, when you're DMing or you're creating a story, you should have just a very loose set of guidelines because you let the players create the story. It's really hard, like when we needed to create lore and stuff behind this. And I think there's two things here. It's one, I felt like we were creating a lot of things and we had to be okay knowing that maybe not everything we created would show up.
Maybe 10% was going to be used.
Totally. And I think that's fine because, like, you think of the world we live in, we don't know everything that's going on at any given moment, and nor should the players know, but it's always there. So if somebody asks about that, the lineage was a good one because it's like we weren't sure if anybody would want to know, but we wanted to make sure we had it just in case. And you just make sure you're very comfortable when you're going through this process that some things you create just may not be used, and that's all right.
And we were in a kind of a unique circumstance because there was going to be other DMs stepping in to run a lot of this. And so we didn't know where they were going to go. And so we had to develop enough information that they could rely back upon to develop their own stories and their own campaigns.
Yeah. And in that way, it's very much a living story because we've created this essentially a foundation for what they are now working off of. They're going to build on that over the next 8 months. Is it right? Something like that.
It's a while.
7 or 8 months, whatever it is. And then we're going to come back and kind of tie everything they've done plus our foundation and bring this to like this climactic end.
Yeah.
Which is going to be absolutely fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
So that was one of our most recent lore generation sessions. But another one that you guys have mostly been a part of, and I'm just kind of experiencing the fruits of, is our personal campaign that we've been doing. Previously, we had done a Descent to Avernus campaign. And so we wanted to keep playing those characters after we wrapped up the Descent to Avernus campaign and wanted to move on from there. And you guys kind of took it and ran with it. And I have no idea where we're going or what we're doing, but I'm loving it.
That makes 3 of us. But
So what we call our campaign is Ragnarok, Fall of the Gods, and it's the sequel to Descent into Avernus. If you want to know more about the Descent into Avernus campaign, you can go back and listen to that like hour and a half long podcast where we talk with the other players in our campaign about everything that happened in there. So spoiler alert on that one. But Phil, I love this because you and I sat down after we decided we were going to keep going. And in a lot of ways, we had to like first sketch out the rules of where we were going. But neither one of us could share a ton of information because one of the things that we decided we want to do, Phil is our forever DM. But in order to give him a break, we wanted to split up moving forward. So Phil like kicked us off. And then now I'm taking the reins for a little bit. as like a little side quest with characters that will also influence the main story. And eventually Brett will take over and Matt will take over and Isaac will take over. And the trick with this is we have this big world that we're living in and we're all doing things within this, but not everybody can know all the things all at once.
Yeah.
Joint storytelling where nobody knows where we're going.
Kind of.
It just ends up with a lot of cryptic text.
It's not that dissimilar to what we're doing for First Street, because at this point, like, I kind of have an idea of where hopefully we're going to end up.
Sure.
We'll see, like, just along for the ride.
Let's talk a little bit about our brainstorming sessions.
Which one?
Which one? Any of them. Let's generalize them just a little.
One of my favorite ones was when we sat out here in Ross's basement living room area and created the letters. When you wrote the letters.
Yes. Yeah, so that kicked off the whole thing.
To kick off the campaign.
Yep. So what was it when we ended the Descent into Avernus campaign? We kind of all went our own separate ways. And my character, who's a paladin, wrote these like cryptic letters in runes, and sent them to the other players, and they had to figure out. The best part about that was the hand delivering them. Like it's so satisfying to like hand something off to somebody. And even better, I like pulled into Brett's driveway and like he came out and he was like talking about, oh, it looks like it's gonna rain. I'm like, are you Arya Vedas? And he was like, yes.
No idea it was coming at all. It's completely caught off guard. Like, oh, here we go.
And then I think I said something like, a raven came for you in the night, and I handed in the letter, and then I backed out of the driveway, like nothing else. I think I
just standing there like.
That was so much fun. Oh my goodness.
One of the first brainstorming sessions we had, I think, was one that I enjoyed the most, because it was okay, we've just wrapped up this Descent into Avernus campaign, which is a pre-written module. If you haven't ran it, I highly recommend it. I loved running that one for you guys and thought that it went really well. But we knew that we wanted to go off script at this point. Like, let's do some development ourselves. Where can we take this? I don't know if it was around the time after maybe Percy Jackson season or something had come out where we had all this inspiration of let's switch up all the gods and like let's throw this all out the window. And I don't know how we ended up there, but we decided we needed a god switch, and we were going to switch out of the traditional like Faerunian pantheons into something more Nordic in nature, perhaps. And it kind of snowballed from there as far as that went. We had a couple gods either perish or disappear, or something's going on.
Yeah,
maybe
something's going on.
Ross's character is having a hard time with the whole situation.
I'm having a
cleric.
My character is not a cleric.
Or paladin. That's right.
I'm having an identity crisis, like in more ways than
true.
one, but
noticed by other characters in game,
which was which was awesome. So to kind of tie this into like how we talked about First Street, like prompts, like our prompt for Ragnarok was basically that entire Descent into Avernus campaign. And really, it was one line from that campaign in a lot of ways. Because there at the end, and maybe it wasn't, and I'm going to say this and feels like
it probably was, but I'm trying to think of what the line is.
So it was like at the end. So spoiler alert: we redeemed Zariel at the end of the Descent into Avernus campaign, and then she said, "You made an enemy out of Asmodeus," and that is kind of what kicked us off.
Yeah. Okay,
even if that's not where you went with it, that did kick us into brainstorming.
That got here, yeah.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. What are the top tips that you would give for a new DM trying to develop something out on their own? Something maybe they've done only just pre-published adventures and they are looking to build their own world. Where would you tell them to start?
So here's my honest opinion. Right?
No prep on this one. So
ask your players.
Involve them.
Seriously, yeah. Because most of the time, the best ideas that I have come from you guys. Either whether it's like co-building something together, or like Matt will message me all the time with ideas for his character, things like that. Like the more of that the
joint storytelling.
It's what it's supposed to be, right? A joint storytelling. So if that's where you want to go, involve your characters. Figure out your players. Like know what they want to do, because then you can craft a world around that. Right. And that's going to build the story even more.
And you know it's something they want, which helps so much. My tip was going to be very similar to that, because it's like, for a DM, maybe building a world for the first time by yourself is a very daunting task. And it can be scary. Like you just like, oh, I don't want to do that because that's a lot of work. But to Phil's point, like ask your players, ask for help doing that. They can help you build the world and you can play the story in the world. Like there's no reason you can't do that. So just don't ever assume that you're alone. Pull from things you know, ask the people around you, and go from there.
And don't get locked into your own ideas. Like your story is going to change over time. And so even if you have something all perfectly planned out and ahead of time, your players are going to derail it. It's not going to go exactly how you want it to go. And that's okay. Roll with the punches. Just keep on moving. Have some fun with it. And continue evolving and continue building your story as you go.
You never know when your players are going to roll up to the side of a hill with a giant ass demonic
demon grinder just
and
smash their way through
a dungeon and skip the whole thing. So,
ooh, I do have another tip.
Okay,
and this is like pro level tip. When you're doing brainstorming, and I'm looking right at the camera for this one, take notes, start a Google Doc, because how many conversations have you and I had where we get to the end of the conversation, we're like, we should have taken notes about that.
I think actually that I'm just going to start joining a Zoom meeting and have it like transcribe the whole thing as we're talking going forward. Because
pro tips,
yeah, it's a problem sometimes.
Because you were not going to remember.
Oh, no.
Or how you got down that rabbit hole.
Part of the problem is half the time we do brainstorming sessions, we've been drinking.
No.
Never us.
The episode, the podcast is called Bards and Barrels.
Yeah.
So there's no barrels at all being had. It's fine.
I'm trying to think. I feel like I had one other one. And I want to say it's along the lines with what Brett said, though, of even if you're running, published stuff, you have an idea maybe of where you're going to go, but be flexible, right? And you don't have, that was it. You don't have to know 100% of the information up front. I think we kind of touched on that when we talked about First Street especially, right? Like we've created pieces and we don't know where they're going to go. Don't be afraid to do that in your own world. You might not know the end game yet, and that might be okay.
You can throw out a lot of stuff from what you have planned.
And let the characters, let them create their own BBEG. See who they piss off the most.
And sometimes you might have breadcrumbs that you think they need to follow, but they don't necessarily if they don't know that they're missing some breadcrumbs, they don't know any better.
True.
It's okay.
Right.
Like as long as they get there and they're enjoying it, have fun. Also, consider your players' play style. Like if your players are heavy into getting into like the lore themselves, lean into this heavily. But if you're more of a smash and grab type of party, you can go pretty light on the lore.
Don't spend time writing out what the 500 manuscripts on the wall in the library have inside them. Just skip that step.
Think about your players and who they are.
I may have a list of books somewhere.
Candlekeep.
Candlekeep. I'm just going to slink off into the corner now.
Rightfully so.
That's going to do it for this episode of Bards and Barrels. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. You can also follow us on our various social media channels, Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Facebook. Just search at Bards and Barrels. Until next time, may your dice be hot and your drink be cold.